Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever it is where you are listening. This is David Rovix, and I'm sitting in my apartment in Portland, Oregon, doing this semi-monthly radio show this month in history and song, although I skipped last month because I was too busy touring around Europe and couldn't get it together to take the time to do this, but even though it's the middle of the month now, I'm doing it for June, and I'll probably do it for July at some point in July, and I thought I would start by doing a couple of songs, sneak previews, exclusives only for people listening to this, of songs that have never before been recorded, or even in some cases ever performed, that are going to be recorded on my upcoming album, which will be released on July 4th. That's the release date for All the News That's Fit to Sing, which is going to be a digital album. And if you are willing to help promote it by signing up for free to join my Thunderclap to promote it, then that would be much appreciated if you did it and told all your friends to do it. If you go to davidrovix.com, right at the top there, near the top, you'll see the website for my Thunderclap, which basically means that you sign up so that Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr and whatever, if you got those accounts, they'll all announce the CD at the same time. But if you want to do it manually, that's also most welcome. However you want to do it. If you click on the Thunderclap thing on my website, then you'll see what the text is that I want you to share. But don't share it before July 4th, because otherwise the link won't work. It's a link for music that will be on Bandcamp, but isn't yet. And, here's a few songs from that album, which I will do live for you here with guitar in hand, as strange as that is. Given I don't have an audience, it's always a bit weird. But I do. I know you're out there somewhere. I just can't see or hear you. But some of you are in the chat room there. There's messages in the chat room. Let's see. Who's out there? Jack, Donnie, and Hannah. Hello, all of you. And there is a chat room. And if you're listening to this, you can just click on that little chat bubble in the lower right of your screen and join it. And have conversations with lovely people from several continents already. There's Paula. There's 3 continents represented at this point. And let's see. So here's a song that occurred to me I should write because some friends of mine in Trondheim, Norway, run a festival which I thought needed a theme song. They just loll about the stock exchange, counting their net worth. Produce another parasite each time that they give birth. On the finest food and drink, they get fatter every day. So if God has something else in mind, he should hurry up and say, if I were to simply summarize the essence of my pitch, I think it's time to eat the rich. They take up so much resources and give nothing in return. We subsidize them thrice for every dollar that they earn. Down throughout the ages, all they do is make things worse. It's not a stretch to point out that these people are a curse. It may seem slightly vengeful, but sometimes payback's a bitch. Now it's time to eat the rich. Some people think they're funny, they follow every tweet. But me, I just get hungry and I want something to eat. Let's be in environmentalists recycle and reuse. Let nothing go to waste. Take their mansions and their shoes, their yachts and airplanes. No need to decide which. Now it's time to eat the rich. Now it's time to eat the rich. That's for the Eat the Rich Festival in Trondheim, Norway, and the general concept, which is a fine concept, I think. And this is going to be the title track, which, if it's kind of like a commentary on the news and also a bit of a maybe appreciation of Phil Oakes. There's a war on for your mind. It's right there on your screen. Watch the pundits ramble on. Find the terms, set the scene. Hear the pundits say this is the best that it can get. There may be room for improvement. Just stay tuned to your set. Just stay tuned to your set. They'll tell you all you need to know. If it's anything important, they'll have it on the show. There's a war on for the planet. There's a war on for your mind. The outcome of the struggle is the fate of humankind. You can drink the Kool-Aid, buy the goods that you are sold. Watch the talking heads, think the way that you are told. Think the way they tell you, hold fast to the lies, or stick your finger in the air. Trust your ears and eyes, turn off your TV, or you won't learn a thing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Some democracies are tyrannies, you can hear them say, while some dictatorships are friendly. They'll tell us every day, if your passion is pro-baseball, you can surely get the score. But if you want to know what's happening, walk right out their door. See the oil train exploding, see the black smoke in the sky, see the kids under the bridge, see the limo passing by. Turn on your TV, or you won't learn a thing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. It's a question for the moment, a question for the ages, for the businessmen and prisoners rattling their cages, for the businessmen and prisoners, be they lost or found upon the rising oceans, or the drag jacket has it down. It's a choice we're all faced with, or so it seems to me. I don't have all the answers, but I can guarantee, turn off your TV, or you won't learn a thing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Turn off your TV, or you won't learn a thing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. And another song I wrote recently was I had a gig in Mendocino, California, and I'll be back around Mendocino in November. Incidentally, I'm doing a tour around the U.S. and Canada in the fall, and any people listening who are somewhere in the U.S. and Canada, you can check out davidrovix.com, see where I'm going. Got lots of room for more gigs. But anyway, I was in Mendocino a few months ago, and Alison Krauss's sister, Alison Krauss, who was one of the 4 people killed at the Kent State Massacre in Ohio in 1970. She was there, and she was on her way to the United Nations in Geneva to try to get the UN to do something to investigate what happen at Kent State, because there's been, among other things, there's been recent evidence of a sniper. And the sniper is quite likely the excuse for ordering the National Guard to fire on students who were all at least 100 meters, 300 feet or so away from them, posing no risk to the troops who claimed that they were defending themselves. But I don't think most college students can throw a rock 300 feet. And there were millions of bombs falling from the sky. There were children looking up before they died. There were millions of people marching in the street, hoping that their country would meet defeat. There were military contracts, lots of dollars to be made, selling heroin and fighter jets in the arms trade. There were millions of soldiers refusing to kill. There were others taking orders directly from the hill, like the ones who were sent off to turn the campus red, who were sent to kill the students dead. There were governors talking about military rule. If they want a bloodbath, let's bring one to their school. If they want a bloodbath, this was the very phrase. That's the language that the governors were using those days. That's the way they thought. That's exactly what they did. There were politicians talking about gunning down kids. They said the students were worse than the Nazis in the war. A quote from the governor just a few days before. The guard was sent in to turn the campus red. They were sent to kill the students dead. There was a sniper on the rooftop, ready to conspire. There were the National Guardsmen with the orders to fire. They all lined up, ready, aim, shoot. There was President Nixon in a three-piece suit. He brought the war home like he said he would. There was a whole generation who understood. There were soldiers lined up 100 meters away. A bullet in the back is the price you gotta pay. When the guard is sent in to turn the campus red, sent to kill the students dead. So I think that will be the little teaser for the upcoming recording, which you can download on July 4th at Bandcamp. You can find the link at my website, davidrovics.com. And if sometime before July 4th you want to join the campaign to send a thunderclap to spread the word about it, that would be grand. You can find the link on my website. I found it was very helpful, the thunderclap thing, when I was promoting my tour last spring in Europe, and I'll be doing that again to promote the tour in the fall, which incidentally does not include any gigs in Ohio or Kent State. Played at Kent State, been many years, but there must be somebody out there in Kent State who wants to organize a show. And I'll sing songs about dead students, and everybody will enjoy it. And what's this about a dog? I'm looking at the chat room. I'm going to sing a song about a dog on this show too, but I'm not sure. I think I missed. I can't scroll up in the chat room, so I miss a lot of stuff if I don't pay close attention. But moving on to June in history in song. Today, this June 1st, first day of this month in 2005, Paul Wolfowitz, one-time Trotskyist as a youth, but who later became a neoconservative as well as a neoliberal, and he, I think, showed very poetically the convergence of neoconservatism and neoliberalism when he moved from being the guy who was in charge of running the occupation and privatization of Iraq to becoming the head of the World Bank.
Done giving orders to generals. He's moved to another sphere. He's through with ordering the tanks to kill. He's gonna do something different this year. He's moving from Virginia to Washington with a neocon to thank. He's through with the War Department. Now he's gonna run the World Bank. He said he'd be true to the mission, that hunger and want should end. And as all Afghans know, he's a man of his word. On that we can't depend. So be prepared for prosperity. It's coming to your door. Cause there will be no poverty once we kill off all the poor. Last week he was bombing cities, now he's a financier. Pay your debts or say goodbye, Paul Wolfowitz is here. He'll bring the world things it needs, such as nuclear power, giant dams and hamburgers. No doubt he's a man of the hour. He's proven it over and over with finesse and aplomb. And for those who disagree, well, then he's got the bomb. Last week he was bombing cities, now he's a financier. Pay your debts or say goodbye, Paul Wolfowitz is here. He's a real American, so he must know best. He'll lead us to glory on this many can attest. He'll lead us to freedom, and we will be so glad, just like those shoppers in that market in downtown Baghdad. Last week he was bombing cities, now he's a financier. Pay your debts or say goodbye, Paul Wolfowitz is here.
Yeah, and of course things are going really well in Iraq now after the U.S. Saved the Iraqis from the tyranny of Saddam Hussein. Now they can have 3 different governments in 3 different regions, and one of them, at least one or two of them, run by people that make Saddam look pretty darn good. But June 3rd, 1839, Chinese troops burned 20,000 crates of British opium, and which the British had been forcing on the Chinese people for some time. And when the Chinese government acted in a way that would have presumably made Ronald Reagan proud. They were punished for their opposition to having a population addicted to drugs by the British, French, American, and Russian armies invading and destroying two cities and killing tens of thousands of people. And Tony Blair, I'm just looking at the chat room, so if I seem erratic, that's because I am. But Tony Blair said that he and Bush were not responsible for messing up Iraq, and that's just... Not only are he and Bush responsible for what's happened in Iraq since 2003, they and their predecessors are very much responsible for what happened in Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war, as well as the gassing of the Kurds. That's all stuff that the West bears intimate responsibility for backing Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war and for providing them the chemicals to gas the Kurds with and gas the Iranians with. So this next song is really quite related to the one about Paul Wolfowitz, just putting it into a 170 years earlier context.
Let me tell you a tale, stir a hornet's nest, well remembered in the East, most forgotten in the West. It was the 1830s, and the Industrial Revolution was turning Europe into a land of wage slaves and air pollution. The history books tell us it was the era of free trade, and the entire world hungered for the products Europe made. Merchants plied their wares across the 7 seas, and they brought back things like porcelain, silk, and tea. Soon all the tea in China could barely keep the West awake. Such a thirst for Chinese products as could barely be slaked. They liked to drink their tea in cups of Chinese porcelain, and those who could afford it loved the silk upon their skin. But what made the merchants and the monarchs scream and cry and shout? They seemed to have little to offer that China could live without. They didn't want their muskets and they didn't want their wool, which left the British coffers empty and the Chinese coffers full. And they called it a trade war. They called it a trade war, and I guess that could be so. They say it's not free trade if it's just a one-way flow, because apparently free trade is when the West comes out ahead. That's how it is in practice, though that's never what is said. The fact of history they have sweep under the rug. The one thing they could sell in China was an addictive drug. It had long been banned by Chinese law, but the British didn't care. They packed the opium up in crates and they shipped it there. And they called it a trade war. It all came to a head in 1838. When the soldiers of the emperor torched 20,000 crates. It took 3 days to burn it, and when the fires had gone out, the Chinese people would soon learn what free trade was all about. Navies came from Britain, France, and the USA. In blood, land, and silver they would make the Chinese pay. Cities leveled, thousands killed. The war was 3 years long. That's how they opened China. That's how they got Hong Kong. And they called it a trade war. And they called it a trade war. And they called it a trade war.
Well, hello to Jack and Donnie, who are at least two people who one of whom at least is probably in Hong Kong at the moment. Maybe they're both in Hong Kong. They lived there ostensibly, and Henrik died, huh? Your dog, Jack's dog, died. We're going to do a song for a different dog later in the show, but he was old, old, blind, and deaf. So I suppose death comes to all of us, and when we're old, blind, and deaf, it comes sooner. Let's see. On June 3rd, the same date as the burning of the crates there was another fire of a sort. A well blowout in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania, spilled more than 35,000 gallons of fracking chemicals.
There was a knock one morning. A man was standing at my door. He said, "Hello, I'm from Halliburton. Have you heard of us before? We'd like to lease your backyard to drill for natural gas. It's called hydraulic fracturing, and it is the very pass for a clean energy future above the Marcellus stone. Plus, we'll give you lots of money and a new mobile phone." I said, "You are a corporate crook. I don't believe the things you tell, and you can drive right off my property and then go straight to hell. No fracking way. No fracking way. I don't trust corporate salesmen, whatever they may say. No fracking way. No fracking way. No fracking way." My neighbor was out of work and things were looking grim, so when the fracking guy came knocking, he had better luck with him. The company said, "Don't worry, everything will just be fine, so just sign your name right here, sir, on this dotted line." Pretty soon the water was tasting pretty dire. One day I lit a match and the water caught on fire. I thought about a lawsuit, then stumbled upon the fact that fracking is exempted from the Clean Water Act. No fracking way. No fracking way. Is this how democracy works here in the USA? No fracking way. No fracking way. No fracking way. As if the situation weren't sufficiently unattractive, we tested the water and found it was radioactive. Now my property is worthless and there's a tumor in my brain. Half of my neighbors are sick, the rest are just in pain. Maybe I should take the money, move off to live somewhere, but all the places I look at, they're fracking there. Our choices now are simple: lose that which we hold dear, or communicate the message in a way that's unstoppably clear. No fracking way. No fracking way. Tell these frackers to frack off, both tomorrow and today. No fracking way. No fracking way. No fracking way. No fracking way. No fracking way.
Oh, so Jack sent me a photo of him with my "I'm a Better Anarchist" t-shirt on and a captured American warplane behind you, Jack. And this was in Albania. So I'm just trying to remember when there might have been warplanes in Albania that somebody would have captured. I guess was this during the bombing of Yugoslavia? I'd just like some background on that, but it's a fantastic photo. And anybody else who has "I'm a Better Anarchist" t-shirts, you should all be encouraged to take photos of yourself wearing them in exotic situations. And Jack definitely wins the prize on such photos. Having the advantage of traveling around the world regularly, that helps. A spy plane in the 60s during the Cold War. That spy was it that you whatever it was, you something. So on June 5th, 1967, the Six-Day War began, leading to the occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip by Israel, which continues up till now in all sorts of terrible ways. And currently there are hundreds of thousands, I guess, thousands of people, including loads of children, in detention in Israel, indefinite detention with no charges, basically for the crime of being Palestinian. And right now, hundreds of them are on hunger strike and have not eaten in as many as 50 days. So at some point soon, I imagine people are going to start dying there. Maybe then it'll make the news. But here's a song about 67, more or less, and since then.
Ask me how it is that I dare to take a side. You say I loathe myself, pointing out you have lied. You say it's tribal warfare, but I disagree, for the dynamics of the situation are not difficult to see. On the one side is the fighter jet, on the other is the stone. On the one side is the slave, on the other is the throne. For the many there are checkpoints, while foreign soldiers rule the streets. For the one side there is victory, but the people don't accept defeat. The word you need to know is occupation, the very definition of a land without a nation. And if peace is what you're after, then let us not deceive. It'll come on the day the tanks return to Tel Aviv. On the one side there is hunger and bulldozed olive trees. On the other is the army, ruling by decrees. Caterpillars maul the streets, destroy whole city blocks, while children swallow shrapnel for the crime of throwing rocks. Fences are erected around the towns they flatten, and Hertz's own fanatics sleep on sheets of satin. And they water their plantations, drilling ever deeper wells, while the displaced children of the hopeless are filled with bullet shells. The word you need to know is occupation, the very definition of a land without a nation. And if peace is what you're after, then let us not deceive. It'll come on the day the settlers return to Tel Aviv. On the one side there's the Mossad, rounding up the men thrown in jail with no trial, being tortured once again. On the other there is rage, helplessness and fear, and a growing realization that another Holocaust is near. On the outside there are prisons, the inside detainees, being stripped of their humanity, beaten naked to their knees. Outside the ghetto walls, stormtroopers all around, while inside the hungry people yearn for liberated ground. The word you need to know is occupation, the very definition of a land without a nation. And if peace is what you're after, then let us not deceive. It'll come on the day the jail guards return to Tel Aviv. Across the world you can hear the people say the children of Jerusalem will be free one day. In overcrowded camps amidst the stench of death and flies to the suburbs of Detroit, you can hear the anguish cries. While in the land of Israel, with God ever on their side, walls and fences are constructed, papers are denied. People fight for their existence while we turn a blinded eye. And those who should know better insist on asking why. The word you need to know is occupation, the very definition of a land without a nation. And if peace is what you're after, then let us not deceive. It will come on the day the refugees return to Tel Aviv.
I love that band playing with me there in Boston. Sean Staples, Dave Westner, and various other fine Bostonian musicians. So, On June 6th, 2013, The Guardian published their first exclusive based on Edward Snowden's massive trove of leaked information, and soon thereafter I wrote this song.
Secretive government had a secret operation, massacring villages, killing millions, secretly bombing an entire nation. They wiretapped a hotel room. They got caught and the government was deposed because of secret documents Daniel Ellsberg exposed. One government came down, and to prevent a repetition of this fact, the next government passed the Freedom of Information Act. Each administration since then hoped it would go away, and then they finally seized the chance on a September day. They passed the Patriot Act before a single congressman had read it, but don't ask the executive how they interpret it, because that itself is secret, never to be revealed, just like their secret prisons and all the torture sessions they concealed. Then they formed the PRISM program so they wouldn't even have to ask compliant corporations to assist them in the task of collecting information. Every email you ever wrote, every book you ever read, every call you ever made, everything you ever said. I looked into a prism. What did I see? A police state looking back at me. The secret government men lied to congressional committees. Secret information even a senator can't see. Secret bureaucrats working with secret corporations, enforcing secret laws, forming secret juries to serve a secret cause. I looked into a prism. What did I see? A police state looking back at me. One brave man came forward and then he fled town. And now the secret government men mean to hunt him down. Feinstein says he's a traitor. McConnell said so too. But I'd say if we have a future, it's because of the whistle that he blew. I looked into a prism. What did I see? A police state looking back at me. I looked into a prism. What did I see? A police state looking back at me.
Yeah, and of course, Edward Snowden went to Hong Kong first, and as Jack mentioned on the chat room, I was on Hong Kong television when I was there, and they played this song in its entirety on their show, which is kind of unusual. Well, certainly in the U.S. it's unusual anyway to actually play an entire song on a interview program. They always seem to have to cut them into pieces. Yeah, that was that was in Hong Kong. That interview's somewhere on the web. You can find it. It's on my website somewhere. Yeah, that was great when the Hong Kong authorities said that the U.S. had not filled out the form properly for extraditing Snowden, so they just couldn't move fast enough to actually get Snowden to the U.S. embassy a few blocks away, and instead the Russians took him to Moscow. That was, but it wasn't that they refused; they just couldn't. The U.S. hadn't filled out the papers properly. So that's they forgot to write his middle name. Could have been a different Edward Snowden hiding out with NSA materials. Yeah. So June 8th, 2011, 5 Food Not Bombs activists were arrested for feeding hungry people in a park in Orlando, Florida, including Keith McHenry, who has gotten arrested in many different states. And I was there in Orlando at eating at a Food Not Bombs meal there sometime soon before they got arrested. And I wrote a song about the arrest.
In the land of Minnie, Mouse, and Mickey, things are getting icky since the municipality of Orlando, Florida, passed a moratoria against feeding hungry people in their city. The mayor said with a scoff, we'd all be better off without these food terrorists lurking like a shark. So he did declare, Samaritans beware, no more feeding hungry people in the park. And if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. Yes, if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. There are many things you can do when you're passing through that are much more acceptable than that. Go on amusement rides, eat things that are fried, buy each one of your kids a little hat. You can stay in a hotel, pretend everything is swell, go to SeaWorld and hear the seals bark. But whatever else you have in mind, you will be in a bind if you feed the hungry people in the park. And if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. Yes, if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. Some wine, have yourself a good time, have a good vacation, then retire. But if you want to stir up trouble, if you deign to pop the bubble and try to feed the hungry people of the Shire, in such a public place we can't suffer such disgrace, though the logic may seem a little stark. What would the neighbors say? Where will the children play if you keep feeding hungry people in the park? And if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. Yes, if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail.
And those beautiful musicians accompanying me on that song are also from Florida. June Bustamante and Alejandro Arenas. And so moving on to other dates in June. The next day, June 9th, 2011, same year, one day later, New York Congressman Anthony Weiner said he wouldn't resign, despite his admitted habit of sending pictures of his genitalia to random women.
Anthony Weiner takes pictures of his wiener and sends them off to lots of women that he's never met. Normally, I wouldn't care about some guy's pubic hair, except in this case it's a politician we can hopefully soon forget. He wants to make New Yorkers proud and show he's very well endowed to be the mayor of the city from which he sends his tweets. He's a good Democrat. He'll go up to bat for the people of New York and the random women that he greets. Anthony Weiner's wiener, these days it's all the rage. To find out more about his wiener, just take a peek at the front page. I probably wouldn't give a shit about his adolescent wit, whether he was sexting after he resigned from Congress or before. I may not like his style as he issues his denial, but what really bugs me is he voted for the war. Anthony Weiner's wiener, these days it's all the rage. To find out more about his wiener, just take a peek at the front page. Now that it's the second scandal, maybe we can pull the handle and send Anthony and his wiener down some flushing drain and await the politician next, who will send a penile text, one vile politician down, but far too many still remain. Anthony Weiner's wiener, these days it's all the rage. To find out more about his wiener, just take a peek at the front page.
And eventually he did resign from Congress, and he resigned from his effort to run for mayor a couple years later when it was discovered that he was still sending pictures of his genitalia to random young women. And also on July 9th, same day, same year, 2011, Kyler Lassen from Adbusters registered the OccupyWallStreet.org web address.
Because this is where they buy the politicians. Because this is where power has its seat. Because 99% of us are suffering at the mercy of the madmen on this street. Because all of us are victims of class warfare being waged on us by the 1%. Because these greedy banksters rob the country, leaving us without the means to pay the rent. Because the last time that we had a decent government was about 1932. Because we the people are supposed to run this country, but instead it's all run by and for the few. Because now we know the rich do not pay taxes, but when they need a hand it's us who bail them out. Because we suspected we lived in a plutocracy, but suddenly of late there is no doubt. So we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna stay right here. Because both my parents lost their savings. Because I have never opened an account. Because the interest on my credit card just doubled, and now I can't pay the minimum amount. Because these budget cuts are just immoral, that our schools as overcrowded as they are. Because there are no buses where I live, but I can't afford to drive a car. Because so many of us don't have health insurance. The rest of us have it, but it sucks. Because the rich are flying in their private jets, while the rest of us are slogging through the muck. Because capitalism isn't working. This system has just failed to produce. Because the 1% are prospering, while the rest of us just suffer their abuse. So we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna stay right here. Because it has been demonstrated amply that the winners are the ones who stick around. Because this world should belong to everyone, not just the banksters who had smashed it to the ground. Because we've noticed voting doesn't change things when the politicians are mostly millionaires. Because we're learning how to stand up like Tunisians, like they did in Tahrir Square. A young man named Mohammed Bouazizi struck a match that lit up all the earth. And all around the world the spell was broken, and a movement for the future was in birth. Because there's only so much the rich can feed us before we figure out which side we're on. Because we've learned if we want our liberation, it will only come if we stay here till the rising of the dawn. So we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna stay right here. Because corporations are not people, and we can't just let them choose. Because if we leave our fate to them, then all of us will surely lose. Because the climate clock is ticking, and we can't just leave our world behind. Because corporate rule isn't working, and it's time for humans' hearts and minds. Because you can't take it with you, because the rich just do not care. Because it doesn't matter how much you make, but how much you can share. Because these moments don't come often. Because we want truly to be free. Because we know what really matters. Something called society. So we're gonna stay right here. 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 We're gonna stay right here.
And on the same date, on June 9th, 2012, thousands of people across Europe protested against the anti-counterfeiting trade agreement, which is now hidden within TPP and TTIP, among all sorts of other nasty stuff that people are opposing, but not nearly as actively, it seems, as they were opposing ACTA, which is a little worrying. Maybe it's too confusing when everything's included in the same free trade nightmare bill. But here's a song I wrote about ACTA.
People are marching against the chiefs of industry who are trying to protect their intellectual property. Secret negotiations to make a secret deal. They've got Warner Brothers, Sony, and the presidential seal. They say they lobby on behalf of you and me. I say, steal this MP3. 50 years ago, what some call the golden age, Indie FM was the king. The world was a stage. Independent labels made records by the score. Enter 2012, now there are only 4. I've got words for these plutocrats who claim to represent me. Steal this MP3. In between commercials, they play nothing but the hits, and they hope to placate all of us with Lady Gaga's tits. They laid off all their staff before the PC was invented. Now they blame the world that their profits have been dented. The 1% is trying to get their fee. Steal this MP3. Steal it. Who line their pockets while the rest of us get screwed. It could all be a comedy if it weren't so crude. They want to arrest you for sharing knowledge, for violating copyright. To quote my friend Attila, these capitalists are a blight. They don't care about the culture, they just want your money.
by that name or another. They don't want your files searched by corporate Big Brother. And if it's up to most of us, no one would sign your bill just so Hollywood and Pharma can make another mill. So from the Mekong Delta to the Mediterranean Sea, steal this MP3. 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 From the Mekong Delta to the Mediterranean Sea. Steal this MP3.
And so then today is Father's Day, and you know, my parents always sort of rejected that as a Hallmark invention, but anyway, whatever it is, it's today, and here's a song for Father's Day.
I grew up in Lawrence, there by the water, in the shadow of a textile mill. Sometimes I feel just like that building, empty but standing there still. I liked the president, I liked the union, I believed in the rights of man. So I signed up when it was time to fight Hitler, and they sent me off to Japan. I couldn't describe it. It was all just so bad. I kept my head down, tried to stay alive. I got shot in the leg, took me out of the action, so I was lucky enough to survive. I came home from the war, met a girl named Maria. We had ourselves a son. When I first saw Jim's face, the first thing I thought, I hope he never has to carry a gun. It was a long time ago, another life that I had, a little boy who called me Dad. But otherwise, life was all right. I had a job and a wife and a fine little lad with eyes so cheery and bright. When his number came up, I said, let's move up north to Halifax. What do you say? But my Jim wouldn't have it. He said, if I'm gonna be drafted, I don't wanna run away. It was a long time ago, another life that I had, a little boy who called me Dad. Stopped coming, and one morning, a knock on the door. Two nervous young men handed me a flag, said your son died in the war. He gave his life for his country, was what the man said. He didn't believe it, and neither did I. I closed the front door, dropped the flag on the floor, and I sat down in Jim's room and cried. It was a long time ago, another life that I had, a little boy who called me It was less than a year when my wife said to me, "You look so much like our little Jim." She had to go, I don't blame her, you know. I also remind me of him. Now it's been 40 years, I'd be a grandpa by now, but instead I just sit here alone. No one calls much these days, but anytime the phone rings, I think maybe the boy's coming home. It was a long time ago, another life that I had, a little boy who called me dad.
And on June 16th, 2002, construction of the Israeli separation barrier, as it's officially known, dividing the occupied West Bank of Palestine in half, began.
They're building a wall between friends, a wall that justifies any means for their ends, a wall between Semites, rich and poor, brothers and sisters from not so long before, many feet thick and 20 feet high. No one can look through it and into the eye of a person you might know, to whom you might confide. Now just a stranger on the other side. They're building a wall between water and land, so we can eat fruit and they can eat sand. A wall to make sure that our orchards will grow and our kids can get fat and not need to know of the cities in ruins and the children in fear that your fathers and brothers in tanks might be near. A wall to keep quiet that which you fear most, so you don't have to listen to your grandfather's ghost. They're building a wall between future and past, a wall to keep distant the chambers of gas from the bulldozers, gunships, and the tears of a child. Dignity, love, and honor defiled, to remove reality from your facts on the ground. A wall to keep distant the terrible sound of the houses that crumble and the children that die. A wall to keep separate the truth from the lie. They're building a wall, and at such a cost, land, money, and safety, and all the lives lost. A wall made of brick, but bricks can be broken when the people of Zion have finally awoken and said no more walls, no more refugees, no more keeping people upon their knees. And then the history books will someday recall, before apartheid was ended, they were building a wall.
That's Ali Rosenblatt singing with me there. Boulder, Colorado, I think it was, or somewhere. No, I don't know. It was in Club Passim in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So June 17th, 2011, Lukanikos became quite a bit more well-known with a BBC expose.
Lots of folks are revolting. They've had enough of this shit. The rich are getting richer. They're saying that's it. But with Luke it's different, that's clear. As he emerges from the fog, let's hear it for Lukanikos, the riot dog. It's a fight between people, but he is no pawn. He knows exactly which side he's on. In the machine of capital, he is no cog. Let's hear it for Lukanikos, the riot dog. He barks at the cops, and he has no fear. He stands his ground when the batons are near. He's got a fan page on Facebook, but he's got no time for a blog. Let's hear it for Lukanikos, the riot dog. Comes towards him, he kicks it back at the fuzz. No, he acts a bit different than a normal dog does. No time to lie in the sun or go swim in the bog. Let's hear it for Lukanikos, the riot dog. Let's hear it for Lukanikos, the riot dog.
Rest in peace, Henrik of Hong Kong. And that lovely dog in Cardiff. I don't know if any of those folks are listening, but I was in Cardiff last month when the dog died on the night that I was there. It was very sad. I mean, they brought him to the vet and stuff, so it wasn't like complete, but it was sad timing to see these nice folks so sad. But I'm getting a phone call, but I'll have to get that later. So, what was another date? June 19th, 1847, Scientific American magazine discussed various aspects of the importation of Egyptian mummies for use in making paper.
People are mysterious. They have many mysterious ways. For 4,000 years in Egypt, when someone reached the end of their days, they'd be carried out to the desert, preserved in an oily broth, and they'd be buried beneath the ground, wrapped in 20 pounds of cloth, and they called it Egyptian rag. People are mysterious. Some mysteries last a while, with 500 million people buried in the sands beyond the Nile. So when the British came to build a railway connecting west to east, with every trench they dug, they unearthed the deceased, wrapped up in Egyptian rag. People are mysterious, like one wealthy man in Maine who heard about these mummies discovered as the British built their train. He formed a corporation to make good use of this find. He sent steamships across the water where there were graveyards to be mined, filled with Egyptian rags. People are mysterious where there's money to be made by turning linen into paper in the body-snatching trade. The boats were sent across the sea for 50 years or more, shipping cargo over to the New England shore, filled with Egyptian rags. People are mysterious, and in the paper mills they thought there was something strange about these tons of cloth they were brought, for they'd throw it on the floor and wondered what they were seeing as the linen sprang into the shape of a human being. And they called it Egyptian rag. People are mysterious, and we may never know all the many consequences of what we reap and what we sow. But next time you hold a book printed in the 19th century, if you believe there is a God, perhaps you want to pray for mercy for what they once called Egyptian rag. Egyptian rag.
So, yeah, it's a really shockingly bizarre story, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to believe that people would do things like that. The sorts of strange places that capitalism will lead you to. It's just, and also apparently they were using the oil that the bodies were embalmed with to run trains in Egypt, and the British were building the railways, and they were using the bodies, the decomposed bodies, to fertilize their gardens in the British estates, colonial estates. So it was just the wrappings of the mummies that were dug up and sent to Maine. Yeah, and before we play the next song, here's a little, I don't know, it just seems serendipitous that I was getting a phone call, and it is Father's Day, so here we go. This is a message I got a moment ago.
Hello, this is Layla, and I was just wishing you a happy Father's Day.
A message from Layla. Perhaps her first appearance on a radio show. Let's see here. June 19th, 2013. Former National Transportation Safety Board investigators publicly urged the reopening of the investigation of the in-air explosion in 1996 that destroyed TWA Flight 800, which sure should be investigated.
Flight 801 left Italy, got to New York town, then expected to leave New York, go back to Italy again. It was a normal evening at first at TWA. The flight took off an hour late after a slight delay. And it was wheels up. There was excitement in the air. For some, it was the first time they'd ever been up there. This time, Flight 800 barely lifted off the ground before it was shot down over Long Island Sound. Scores of people saw it and they wondered why. That light had left the earth and arced into the sky. They saw it hit the aircraft, saw the craft burst into flame. People asked who fired the rocket. Others asked the same. What was to be another flight over the Atlantic Sea was a flight that wouldn't be. 'Cause this time Flight 800 barely lifted off the ground before it was shot down over Long Island Sound. Was it a Navy missile going where it wasn't supposed to go? Or a terrorist attack? We may never know. The CIA announced we understood the popular confusion. What appeared to be a missile was an optical illusion. And for some reason, which we cannot explain, there are 230 people dead. Dead they will remain. 'Cause this time Flight 800 barely lifted off the ground before it was shot down.
And on June 21st, 2000, former Enron executive Jeffrey Skilling was hit by a pie thrown by an activist with the Biotic Baking Brigade, who were pieing a lot of people that really deserved a lot more than a pie in the face. Right around that time, after 9/11, it seems to have taken the pieing episodes became dramatically less common because I think it became more dangerous, I guess, to throw pies in the faces of people in authority. But maybe the tradition will resume as it should.
I don't know if there's any pie throwers in the audience. Yeah? Planning on throwing any pies? I think there'll be some pie throwing going on in D.C. in the next... I don't know if there will be. I guess they got those places pretty heavily guarded, but I know Dave will be down there, so you never know what'll happen. But the president of the International Monetary Fund got hit with a pie in the face several weeks ago in Bangkok. And up in New Hampshire, they got the genetic engineer Neil First. Dave Pike did that. Or, no, Creamy Jeans is his name, Agent Creamy Jeans. And they got Charles Hurwitz out in California, the mayor of San Francisco, and a whole bunch of other people that really desperately deserved pies in the face, or probably a lot more. So I wrote a song for the Biotic Baking Brigade, and I hope you all sing along with me. If you don't know the words, you'll pick them up by the second chorus or so. See the man in his limousine, in his tie and well-pressed shirt, hoping that he's not been seen on the lookout for dessert. He knows that he is guilty, and a visit might be paid by the vegan vigilantes of the Biotic Baking Brigade. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the Baking Brigade delivers. There's the chorus. If you sell your city's soul to the landlord's greedy pack, you, my friend, have earned yourself a tasty pastry snack. You can call yourself a liberal and hope your crimes will fade, but your sellout soul will be exposed by the Biotic Baking Brigade. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the Baking Brigade delivers. If you cut down the last of the forests, spew poison in the air, don't you be surprised to find that cheesecake in your hair. Yes, if you are a corporate criminal, you've surely made the grade to receive a fresh baked goodie from the Biotic Baking Brigade. Here we go. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the Baking Brigade delivers. Beware all you scoundrels of industry, we know of your disgrace. So smile for the camera with the cream pie in your face. You can hope that we won't find you out as you're hiding in the shade. Someday soon you'll meet your doom, the Biotic Baking Brigade. Here we go. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the Baking Brigade delivers. One more time. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the Baking Brigade delivers.
That's Eric Royer doing the brilliant banjo part there. Check it out. Look for Royer's Guitar Machine if you want to see some wild stuff on YouTube. Then on June 25th, 1950, the Korean War began, leading to the deaths of millions of Korean civilians, hundreds of thousands of Chinese soldiers, and tens of thousands of American soldiers.
50 years ago today, we stood in rubble. The sun rose each morning through the smoke. Your planes flew above us looking for something left to bomb. Our factories, our schools lied ravaged and broke. Now you wonder why there is this anger, as we remember all too clearly a time that we once knew, when every home, every dam, and so many, many people were flattened to the ground by the things you had to do, when Korea was just another name for bombs falling from the sky, and home was just another word for this place where people die. "50 years ago today, you killed my mother. I've lived my whole life and never knew the love she might have given, the joy she might have felt to sit in the garden where her grandchildren grew. And now you wonder why we might feel attacked. You wonder at the stand our leaders take. But it was you, I remember, who gave us this lesson of the sound of a city when it breaks, when Korea was just another name for bombs falling from the sky, and home was just another word for this place where people die." 50 years ago today, you killed my father. He was shooting at your planes when he died. Just one of how many million dead soldiers fighting and falling side by side. Now you wonder at what you call an evil axis. You throw words that someday will explode. We remember the last time you said these things, when crater was another word for road, when Korea was just another name for bombs falling from the sky, and home was just another word for this place where people die. Years ago today, we stood in rubble.
And on June 27th, 2002, there was a wonderful protest outside the Woomera Immigration Detention Center in South Australia that involved many of the prisoners getting out of the prison and escaping into the ranks of the protesters and then being whisked away. Basically, many of them never were caught. Others were found and brought back. But it was quite an act of solidarity that was a beautiful thing to hear about. And this song is tangentially related, but related enough that I figured I would play it for the occasion.
My father's mother's parents came here on a boat. They came from a land of kings and queens, but on the wrong side of the moat. My father's parents came here on one too. They didn't want to leave Austria, but it was the thing for Jews to do. I don't know your story, but I'll bet it's more or less the same. What kind of war or famine was on when your family came before their ship arrived? Did your folks come here to discover and explore, or were they refugees running from the war? Did they cross the freezing mountains to make it to the sea, all the while wishing that they never had to flee? Were they marched across the jungles with chains around their feet, nearly dying of exhaustion in the desert heat before their ship arrived? Did they make a life here, or were they kidnapped and detained, held for years in limbo as their optimism waned? Were they turned down for asylum and told they shouldn't lie, then sent off to be tortured, sent back home to die? Did they get to move here, create their lives anew? Or are they held on Christmas Island, asking what on earth they can do before their ship arrived? Before their ship arrived.
And I think that brings us to the end of this radio show. It's going to be on the web, for people to download after it's over, if you know anybody who might want to check it out. And thanks everybody out there for listening, and thanks for all of you who joined the chat room where there was some more fine conversation that I enjoyed very much. And for those of you in the Northwest, I'll be doing a house concert on July 1st in Portland, and then playing at the Vancouver Folk Festival next month, and up in British Columbia, and then in the fall, mid-September through late November, I'll be touring all over the U.S. and Canada. So hope to see you on the road and in the streets. And I'll be doing this show again at some point next month, I'm sure. And I will post it on my email list and Facebook and stuff when I figure out what the date will be for that. And good to hear from you guys, Brian and Judy. Glad you're listening in from Chicago, and to all the folks out there in Australia, Asia, Europe, and North America who have just been listening and participating in the chat room. It's been lovely hanging out remotely, and I'll close the show with this song in remembrance of all the 130 women, men, and children who died when the United States Air Force once again bombed a village full of civilians in Afghanistan on June 28th, 2007 in Hyderabad, Afghanistan.
50 heads of state came to threaten and to boast, to articulate their message and together make a toast to the new schemes they're hatching, to the next regime they'll change, to the next nation they'll turn into a bombing range. They hyped it on the radio, newspapers and TV, the anarchists who'd come and destroy the city. The anarchists who'd come and the undercover cops, the old Chicago Red Squad and their psyops. It's the cops who bought the petrol, the cops who bought the cans, the cops who brought it home, the cops who made the plan, so they got the terrorists they wanted. Now they're doing fine, they got the terrorists and they got the headlines. I wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Meanwhile in Afghanistan, another family is dead, wiped out in their sleep as they were lying in their bed, wiped out of existence like so many are each day. This is liberation, so they say. This is liberation, and in case you are unsure, the NSA will tell you if your thoughts might be impure. While the generals fly their Air Force all the way across the ocean, they'll build military bases, drop bombs of all description. But if you drive from Florida to the city of Chicago to pay a little visit to Mayor Rombo, watch out for the cops who bring home the gasoline, and your apartment becomes a crime scene. I wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Meanwhile in Afghanistan, a village has been hit, a wedding party transformed into a pit, transformed into a graveyard for children, women, men, transformed into a graveyard for empire again, a place where terrorists are born with every drone attack, a graveyard for the Midwest boys never coming back, a graveyard for society, a graveyard for ideals, a place to bury all the hearts of anyone who feels them. At the meeting in Chicago, they'll talk of women's rights, they'll talk about the terrorists they've got within their sights, the terrorists abroad, the terrorists so near, the terrorists who grew up in a suburb around here. I wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Meanwhile in Afghanistan, more protesters shot down by NATO NATO troops who had to prove it's them who run this town, by NATO troops who have to show they are in control, while it all comes crashing down in the countries they stole. NATO troops committing war crimes every day, ruling over nations in the old imperial way. The lying generals in Chicago with their satellites and tanks, taking orders from their bosses, the oil men and banks, taking orders from their bosses, looking suitably enraged at terror, foreign and domestic, real or staged, whether led on by informants or just pissed off by the war. The terrorists are meeting behind closed doors.